Okay, so Mr. Busick is not going to be here, so we're going to go ahead and move right on to Dalton Summers, our superintendent at the OVESC. And Dalton's here, and we're going to kind of just reiterate what we are looking to possibly do at Putnam School and the opportunities that exist for the county.
So, I think we go into the stand or sit, but
Whatever you're comfortable
I'll
with.
do whatever you guys want me to do. First of all, I appreciate you letting me come in. And like Brad said, I think I've met a few of you anyway. I know that. I don't know if I've met everybody, but like Brad said, I'm the superintendent of High Valley SC. And so really, and I know Brad's, I think, kind of tried to lay the groundwork a little bit, so to speak, on the idea we had. But one of the things that we've noticed, Washington County, not just Washington County, but all the area that we provide services to, which is now Washington County, Monroe County. Morgan County is actually going to be part of our ESC as of July, and Crooksville is actually going to be part of our ESC. Now, I don't know how much they'll take part in this particular thing I want to talk about tonight, but one of the things that all of our schools have noticed and are in need of are some alternative type or opportunities for students that we're not being able to provide for in the actual schools, whether that be everything from alternative type placements for short, really with the goal being not long term, more like maybe 10 days, maybe 50 days if it's maybe 60 days or whatever, something alternative for a student. I hate to use the word alternative school because that always has a negative connotation to it, but something like that, all right? Something we did, I know in Coshocton County, which is where I came from, I was the superintendent there for the last 10 years at Riverview, and we had a school like that basically what the county schools, we didn't do it through our ESC necessarily, we did it through our county. So we had 3 school districts in our county, and we had this school, we operated it out of Coshocton. All 3 superintendents, all 3 boards kind of cooperated with this, and it was something we used for basically alternative placement, all right? So as the ESC superintendent, one of my jobs is to listen to what the other superintendents want, and this is something that there was a big cry for. Everything, now I will tell you, when you deal with a room of 9 superintendents, you get 9 different things that they want. So there's a bunch of things that they want out of this, and it's kind of like, we got to start someplace and we got to build out from it. Well, one of those things was like an alternative type placement, an alternative type school. And another big piece to that was something a little more intensive, like I call them blue rooms, but I'm thinking more for severe.
Some is behavioral, some is some autism kinds of units, things that we're not able to offer because we don't have a large population,
Yeah.
but we may have a student or 2 that we end up then having to send elsewhere, someplace else, to another county
To give you an example, to give you an example, like when we talk about like a severe, I hate to say severe autism because there's so many different levels of that. But let's say a service that you all couldn't provide. So what you're forced to do now to try to provide that service is find the nearest place you could, and that may be in Athens, Ohio. That may be in Columbus. So you've got a busing cost, and so it may end up being an $80,000 cost for that one student to do that. If we can provide that, we think there's a big enough need here in this area that just between the 6 or 7 schools within our ESC region, we could collaboratively do that. Like I said, that would be for that instance. The same goes for when we talk about a discipline, this is what we're talking about for discipline. We're not talking about court placement. I mean, there are schools where the courts, place them. We're talking about those situations where you may have that student that, maybe been up for an expulsion, all right? But the expulsion is not to the level of an 80-day. None of us want to expel students. That's kind of counterproductive to why we're here. So you might want that alternative placement to, okay, we're gonna try this before, that's actually, this is what you try to do before you get to that next level. And those students may go to that place. We have counseling services there. We have a teacher there. We have the curriculum that all the school districts agree on using while they're there, so they're not losing that education component, but yet still removed from the situation that they're in until you get them, I hate to use the term rehabilitated, but to get them back to the school. Always the main goal to try to return students to the least restrictive environment, back to school if all possible. So all of that being said, it's kind of a big concept. I know I'm kind of giving you a broad view, but that's because, like I said, I have 7 different schools wanting 7 different things. So, but the one thing we kept talking about is to get, I'm all for providing this. I know we can provide this. I know we can collaboratively provide it amongst all the districts. We kept saying location, location. I've got to have a starting spot, got to find a spot. But just so happens that last year we were looking, I was able to go through Putnam last year because we were looking for a location too for the ESC. And I'm thinking this would be the right spot if it's at all possible. Where I was at in Riverview, we closed some buildings at times, and I know what it's like when you have an empty building sitting there. So you're sitting with an empty liability. I hate to call it a liability because it's a school building. You're sitting with that, or you're sitting with the idea, okay, what are you going to tear it down, and the cost of abatement. I mean, I know all of those things that you're going through right now because I dealt with all of those myself, and that building's still in a very good neighborhood. It's a very nice building. It's still a usable building. So Brad and I started talking, and we kind of presented to superintendents. I thought, that would be the perfect scenario if we could use that building because number one, it's zoned as a school. It's still a school. It's going to serve all of Washington County students, which would be, good for the community, good for the area. Allows it not to set empty for this board. So you don't have to kind of worry about what's going to happen to it down the road on that. So there was a lot of advantages that would be that I think we could present there. Keep the cost out of the Marietta City can't absorb the cost of running a building for the Ohio Valley ESC, obviously. So the cost of the building is to be maintained by the collaborative, by the ESC. Obviously, the collaborative is all the districts through us. So, and then so there's no cost to Marietta City, essentially, in the Marietta City schools, I'm saying, in the cost of maintaining that. So that's kind of.
So basically what we're looking at is if we're good with this, we want to move forward with. We've shared, Frank's shared all the data with the treasurer to look at costs for, what it's going to be. And then we would start working on, formal documents, contracts, concepts, how we'll set this up for, a year, an annual renewal, or, however we choose to go about that. I think a couple of things that Dalton says, it's important, we may have a couple of kids as Marietta City, Fort Frye may have a student, Warren may have a couple of students, so individually we can't do these things. But if we pull these resources together and pull these students, then we can offer something that can be effective for everybody. And it will be a cost savings because they'll be staying right here as opposed to, going someplace else. And I think that's the key. We wanna get them back as quickly as we can under the right circumstances. And trying to have somebody go to 5 different districts to work for counseling is a lot harder than going to one location. And that's what the ESC can do, is provide that one location through this. And then we've got the counseling, we've got those extra services that some of our students need. So if you guys are okay, we'd like to start moving forward with that. I know one of the things we've talked about in this is, there'll be a cost if you send a student there. And that's where we've talked about the fact that Marietta would get that at a discounted rate since, we've got a little more invested in this in terms of the property and all of that kind of thing. So those are all things that we would be working out, and before we sign, obviously that will be brought back to the boards and likely going to all the boards for the county that would be participating. So.
The idea like of the 6 to 7 schools that would collaborate, how many students could be helped every year?
Perfect. So depending on how many units you put in, so that's what you got to look at. So let's say, for instance, so in the grand scheme, all right, if you were trying to get it, especially with this building, this particular location of building created the ability to do more than one thing in it. So let's say from the alternative school side of it. So the piece to it that would include somebody in lieu of a 10-day suspension or in lieu of a 30-day expulsion, somebody in there, that kind of time period. You probably want to keep about a 30 class size. Okay, so 30 person, no more than. I can tell you at Riverview, Coshocton City, and Ridgewood, and I'm just saying that because I grew up in this area, even though I've lived in that area, so the cultures aren't that much different. I mean, you're talking pretty much just the north and the south difference in our culture. We maintained a 25 kid out of those 3 districts pretty easily. So, but that was a K-12. So we had all of them in the same room because it's a very structured that piece to this is a very structured environment. So it's a very controlled environment. I mean, there's a resource officer. We didn't call him resource officer, we called him deputy, but there would be a resource officer in this place as well. So it's a very controlled environment. So if I was taking that model with just those three schools, Riverview being almost the size of Marietta, but the other two being more like Fort Fry and, you know, that size. You're talking probably, what we would want to do is probably something in K-6 range and maybe a 7-12 range. And if you have like a 25 seat capacity, I don't, matter of fact, I would be more worried that's not going to be enough, to be quite honest, because once principals start to see it, it's a really positive thing that's in lieu of kicking a kid out of school. I mean, we don't want to just kick kids out of school. I mean, but there are consequences to your actions sometimes. So it's that level of kids.
Well,
So,
and a good example is, you know,
Yeah.
we've got a health department that's interested in doing some
Yeah.
education about vape cessation, you know, things like that. That could be a part of
right.
one of the programs when you're assigned there, you've gotten caught for your second time. You go there for X number of days, and that's a part of what you have to complete in order, you know, then to come back and stuff. So it's about educating, helping, you know, that kind of thing.
So if you were to take just that section, or just that piece right there, that's the easiest to manage and come up with. That's why I started with that one. That's why I keep telling the superintendent, I mean, let me work with something and work out, because that one I have a little experience with, so I know. So if you take that, then you figure to staff that, you're looking at a teacher in both. If there's the two levels, you have to have a supervision in both. You're looking at a resource officer to spend that day there. And so that's your staffing piece. The counseling piece really is not a cost to us, because the counseling, the way we run this is the counseling will come to it. And then their billing, if there is a bill, it's usually through not through us, it's usually through Medicaid or something like that. So there's no cost there. But anyway, so what you do is we figure out the cost of the utilities and everything. We come up with a budget that it costs to run for that. And then you work back, you just residually budget, just like the state does with us all the time. You residually budget. We're gonna look back, and then that's how you set your tuition. But now on the other side of that, keep in mind that while you set that tuition each year to cover that cost, tuition meaning the daily rate. So I'm gonna kind of blow your mind for a second. The one we had enrolled in Coshocton, my tuition was $30 a day per kid. Now we ended up finding a lot of grants every year, which is something we would be able to do, which also goes back to collaborative. The advantage of having as many schools in our region, the bigger we make the reach, the better we're equipped to get the grants. I mean, the more kids I can show, the more schools using this for these kind of wraparound services, these kind of services that kids there, the more you get grants. So the more money, outside money we get in, obviously lowers the cost of that tuition per kid. There's one of these in Guernsey County. I think their tuition's $120 a day. So it ranges something like that. But at the end of the day, it's like I told somebody one time, if you have an expulsion with a kid, when a kid's truly expelled from school for, let's say, 80 days, or 50 days, whatever you do, you lose all state funding for that kid the whole time they're there. When you're expelled, you're disenrolled from school. You're literally disenrolled from school. It's not like a suspension, so you're losing that. So it's really it's a pretty cost productive thing. So if you're building it out that way, I would say you're probably looking at 30 to, as big as the areas we're covering here, you're probably looking at 30 to 60 kids just for that piece. Now you take that next piece we were talking about, and that's probably gonna have to have a different price structure, because that might be a class of 4, because they're very high needs, and you may need a special ed teacher in there and a regular teacher in there, possibly a parapro, however we work that out. That's gonna have a higher cost to it. But again, like I said, we have a school in this area that's spending $120,000 right now for a couple of kids someplace. So there's, and that's because they happen to go a long ways away, we got a couple schools like that. So,
Potential's there to
Yeah, the
help
potential's
cost the
there.
county.
offset the cost. We're not really worried about that piece. As a matter of fact, from the feedback we're getting from the district superintendents, and there's even the special ed departments and things like that, we've kind of reached out. At some point, it's like anything else, you're getting ready to start. In my position, I'm thinking, I'm not worried about filling it, I'm worried about it getting too full too fast before I can, it's too big before you. So I think that I'm not I think, I don't think we're really concerned as a group about the cost of maintaining it. It's just a matter of getting it up, getting it started, getting it staffed, like everything else. If we don't find the right staff for it, it doesn't work. So obviously, the sooner we get going and get things moving, it's like the better chance we have. We're not too far behind right now, but, we walked through it the other day just to look at it, and, it's gonna need repainted, it's gonna, floors re-waxed and everything, it's been sitting empty for 2 years now, right? So, but it's by no means is it a building that's ready for demolition. I don't think that's why you guys closed it, right? It was more about enrollment and things like that. So, any other questions?
Did you guys have much success with kids when you were in
Yeah.
Shocking County
Yeah.
coming back to their home school
Oh,
with positive?
Yeah, matter of fact, I was telling this when I first got to Riverview, I'd been a superintendent at Guernsey County for a couple of years before I went there. And within the first 2 weeks of being out, this is the best kept secret in Shocking County. I wish I had one of these, when I was back there. Not only would I say we had success coming back, I'd say our graduate, especially at Riverview, our graduation rate, we had 96, 97% graduation rate all the time. This had a lot to do with it because we had kids now sometimes our problem was we had certain, I don't know if it's a problem or not, we would have kids that would go there and thrive because really all you did when you went there was work. I mean, you weren't allowed to do anything else. You worked on your work and you worked on your schoolwork, and that was it. That was all there was to do. And they would get caught up and then some. And I literally have kids every now and then saying, "I just want to go back there." It's not how this works. We're trying. You also have to learn how to function with everybody else. Way more success stories. And as a matter of fact, we did take throughout this year. We've been looking at this. And so we took a couple people from Fort Fry with us. I think Nicole Honker went with us, and we went out, and I took my special ed person here to ODSC, and we went and visited Coshocton. We went and visited the one in Perry County. We went and visited one. They're going to visit one right now up in Central Ohio, Franklin County. I think this week they're going to visit that one. It's Wednesday when we're at the State House. They're going to visit that one. So we're going and checking a lot of models to try to put this together. So yes, success-wise, I can't speak in a matter of fact, I don't know that I can tell you a non-success story. I mean, I'm not, in the 10 years I was there now, I would say probably Riverview used it probably. And the other thing is from a billing standpoint, the way we always did it was a percentage of the usage. So if we didn't cover the budget and tuition at the end of the year, there's a true up at the end. So every district knows that. So we find out what the true up is. You go by the percentage of usage and pay the true up to pay it down. But we never had a problem. That was never, and we ran that for, and I don't want to say that, not every county is the same, but that's been there for 30 years, I'd say 25 years. It was there a good 15 years before I got there in 2012, I think. So it manages itself pretty well, but the building is important. I mean, at the end of the day, we had an armory there that we used. There happened to be an armory in town, and the city kind of gave it to us almost, all we had to do was maintain it. Basically, it's kind of the same thing we're kind of asking. It was like we'll pay the cost to maintain, and again, so the school district doesn't have any direct investment.
So you're talking about the operational costs.
Mhm.
We talked a little bit about this today, like capital costs. Like in your experience, was that handled by somebody like whereas the schools would still be an asset of ours?
Yes.
What would be your vision there?
So the way we,
Boiler needs replaced.
yeah, so that's probably the bigger item, because obviously the way our agreement was, I mean, again, that's what we had problem. The way our agreement was, if the roof blew off or whatever, the insurance pieces like that are gonna be, still under Marietta City. Now, I guess the selling that, because I also had it's funny that we had that, but also Riverview, we owned a school that Head Start used, so I had the same kind of arrangement basically that we're asking for from you guys with Head Start. And so if the furnace broke down, I sent my maintenance guy there, and hopefully we were going to be able to fix that. The way it was always explained to me when I first got there, the investment was still ours. So at the end of the day, we ended up selling that property and that building down the road. We maintained the investment, but all of the utilities, just the running cost and everything like mowing, everything like that was billed back to the agencies that were using it from. We didn't rent it to them because it was places like Head Start, and I think Jobs and Family Services has some things in there. So they're all community tax funded places. So obviously we weren't trying to rent it to them. But yes, so the cost there in ideal would still maintain with Marietta, those bigger ones, but again, with the idea that 5 years from now, somebody comes in and that property value's higher for your school district and you're trying to make that decision for your school district, certainly you're gonna wanna sell it. You're gonna wanna do what you can do, you know, for the school. That's still your first priority, obviously, and it would be there. That's how we ran it. You know, obviously, it just depends on how we would wanna work something out. And I think our districts are amicable. One thing I like about it is all of our other districts, not just Brad and I. When we mentioned this site, 'cause we looked at a couple other options, this was the one that everybody thought, all the options we were looking at we're gonna be in Marietta anyway. I mean, obviously, this was the central place. This is where we would have wanted to put the school. We really didn't want to put one, no offense to Beverly, out of Beverly or Frontier. I mean, that wasn't gonna be, we wanted to stay in Marietta City, so this was the one that, I mean, just the whole idea. I mean, if schools would transport the kids there, if they choose to transport them, they're gonna wanna bring their vans there, the turnaround's already there, it's already a school, you know what I mean? And that made it nice. I mean, the fact that it's already a school and the community's used to it being a school right there. Even down the road, there's other options, as long as the partnership would work. I mean, one of the things we're always talking about too, preschools are overflowing, right? So we've always talked to Ohio Valley, like, because we have everybody's preschools. If we could have it just almost a catch-all preschool, like a overflow, for the overflow, so you don't have the waiting lists. I mean, it's a big enough building that even down the road, and that's down the road. Even down the road, that could be a possibility in a need, if you get to that need where we're overflowing, and a couple of our districts are having people on the waiting list, you know, it might be a place to pick up the preschools. So, what are the questions? I'm sorry. I don't know if I know I'm kind of giving you a conceptualized thing, but really it's like I said, well, once we get the idea where we're going to go, then I can start really throwing out all of them. This is what it looks like.
The board is, we're not ignoring Putnam and Harmer. We recognize that how important they are, they were to those communities, and so we're not in a rush to,
Right.
and so this gives us an opportunity to do something right,
Right.
to help our district,
Mhm.
help other districts, and buy us some time, I think, when we get to where, and that's where the shorter term
And that's
lease
what,
agreements.
yeah,
would
and
be
that's what
really
we talked
valuable.
about is that, there'd be some sort of an annual review or whatever, because like Dalton just said, if something came up that, there was an opportunity for the board to, decide to do something with that property one way or another, then we would have that time period, and it would be all a part of, so that we wouldn't just lose what we're doing at that facility, we would be able to find another place for it, that sort of thing.
And I think that's kind of how the relationship we had with that Army, of course, it stayed there for 25 years, but it was, I think the advantage when we did it there was like, people wanted the Armory to stay there. It was part of the history of the town. It was there, and it was a way to keep a building that was, aging pretty good, still mowed, still a nice, nice place, and everybody knew that was the other alternative.
Putnam is lost, because it's not used.
Yeah.
It's not used even, even though it's a safe community.
Right.
You start to see,
Yeah.
and I think that's frustrating some people. that-
The longer it stays empty, just the harder it is to keep that appeal to it, right?
What's the condition of the roof? Since we've replaced all our roofs recently, is that one in desperate need of repair, like?
I don't think it's in
The gymnasium roof is.
okay.
The other roofs are, looks like probably 5-10 years possibly. We just had the upper end redone with the 60 mil EPDM, so it's in good shape up on the upper end. But yes, the gymnasium roof does need attention sometime.
No, I think it's what we're gonna be doing to help keep the kids close, get them integrated back, avoid the expulsion. Our graduation data said if you expel them,
Yeah.
it's like a 10% chance that they're gonna graduate.
Yeah, I used to tell when I would do expulsion hearings and I would try to explain to the grants, I was like, do you realize this is not something we want? This is counterproductive to it. This increases the likelihood of not graduating you massively, so it is definitely, but again, I want to make sure it's really clear. We're not looking at something like, what Perry County has that is like, they have a really nice, it's called, I can't think of the name of it, but it's just outside of New Lexington. But it's more court centered, so the juvenile court places kids there. I don't think we're looking, now we definitely want to be in partnership with juvenile court. That's how we were with Sharpie. Was really nice because the juvenile judge would be able to sit there and say, have you been to the alternative school? When the kid came in to say, how much time have you spent there, or something like that. But I don't think we want to get into something that's that level of, there are certain things that kids have to be expelled for. There are certain things, and hopefully we don't cross those too many. But a lot of the stuff we're dealing with, those longer suspensions for are the vaping, or the repeated vaping, or maybe fighting, let's face it, kids fight in school. I know nobody knew that. Not surprising. Right? Those kind of things, I think that's where you get a lot of it. But really, it's what can build out from it. The building's big enough to put those kind of units that schools can't afford by themselves in it and be managed. So
if this got the green light, then is this something that could start in the fall?
that's the plan.
Okay.
I want it at the bare minimum. I'm hoping.
Parts of it would start in the
yeah.
fall, and then we would continue to add as we get a little more specific in terms of what those needs are for some of our specialized units, those kinds of things. Behavioral units are things that we struggle with, just having numbers and having all the resources there. And then what happens is that we share resources with other schools, so we're waiting for those. Well, here's a way to have them in one place, like I said, so, yeah.
And we already currently are writing grants, districts are writing grants, or trying to collaborate on a couple right now to where we could use that money to help support this. I haven't actually could do a ESC grant, we didn't have ESSER dollars like districts did, but we had something called YEARS dollars, which were very similar. And I have a pot right there that I can spend. I'm sitting and I think I can apply those to the cleanup or the get ready. In other words, I could apply some of those dollars to whether we contract it through Marietta, or of course his staff's going to be pretty busy in the summer, I'm sure too. Or whether we have to contract, however that works out, whatever works for Marietta to do that. So we're also trying to find dollars to put. The more dollars we put into it, the more dollars we find for it. And you think about it, the kind of services we're talking about are the kind of services dollars are coming towards right now. And how many times schools are getting these dollars and I don't know how to spend these because I don't have the place. This allows us to do that. And then again, sure, ESC, so that's what we're here for.
I think
That's
one
our
of our
mission.
biggest challenges will be in what is a capital improvement or what is just like maintenance improvement, right?
Mhm.
To replace a window.
Yeah.
They're gonna be
And there's
by
things, I
everybody.
think there's some things that are defined,
Yeah.
in other practices that we can look at.
I think we certainly can. And I think if we get the, I think our hope was if we get the green light to continue to proceed, that's going to be our next thing,
We gotta start getting.
finding out, okay, here's some things for you guys to look at. This is what the capital improvement would, is it a roof replacement, light bulbs, not so much. But even like the grounds, for instance, what we would ideally like to do would be you guys continue to do the grounds and then figure out a way to bill us back to pay you for that cost. I don't know if that's possible, or when I say grounds, like mowing the grass, or if we gotta push off the snow one day, if there's a way to build the ESC back for the maintenance of it. But again, if that's not the case, because you're already, you just hired out, just like I do in my offices.
I think if the details come back.
What's that?
Come back with something we can approve.
Yeah, come back. Well, that's all I
We can only
want.
take action by voting on resolutions, so
Yeah.
you gotta give me the resolution and the
Well,
document.
and like I said, we wanna make sure
Yeah.
moving forward and
No,
that we can,
I think it's a wonderful
but
concept.
we've spent a good deal of time already working with the other superintendents and got grants, so we're gonna be submitting tomorrow.
I promise you, we do have stuff ready to go as soon as, I keep telling the superintendent guys, they're ready to want it. This is, of all the things since I've been in this is probably the most wanted thing from all districts, so it's like, I gotta have a location first. Once we have a spot to do it, we can go, so. We'll start working on that kind of stuff back. I appreciate you.
Frank understands how much sending the kids out farther away costs, so.
All right, well, thanks, Dalton.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
would love to stay for your whole board meeting, but if you're allowing me to go, I'm heading back to the shotgun to see my wife. So that's all right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, so next up, we have Dave Henderson from but safer routes, and I've been sharing all the information as I've got it, so he's gonna talk a little bit more, and then we have a resolution, we'll be running one here a little later on.
I have to share a little bit over here.
I've probably got copies of everything.
Yeah, I know. It's nice to have a little more handout. It's like the old times.
Just like the old times.
Well, I like to present standing up if that's okay. I'm Dave Henderson with the City of Marietta Engineering Department. I'm also the Safe Routes Coordinator. A little background on the Safe Routes. This is earlier this month, 3rd of March, we submitted an application and an update to our school travel plan. This is the second application that I have been a part of, and if it's awarded, it'll be the 3rd Safe Routes program that I've been a part of. It was the first project I touched when I started at the city 8 years ago. So, part of this year's Safe Routes has been applied to be on school property. I'll go ahead and run down the entire application, and I'll let you know which parts are on the school property. At the Marietta Elementary, we have proposed installing bike racks on school grounds near Glendale Road, adjacent to the steps of the Marietta Elementary. That would be approximately 20 bikes. When I was on school property, it would be bike racks and then a retaining wall into the hillside. That would allow for people or kids to park their bikes there rather than chaining them to the handrail across the street. It could also be used for kids that pick up the bus at that location. We're also looking at a road diet with bump outs and ADA curb ramps on Betsy Mitchell Lane to create an additional parent pickup and drop off area. Now that is, of course, on a city street. And then this year's the first year that we could include Marietta High School when we updated. So we have improved pedestrian crossing facilities at the top of Academy and Davis Avenue, and that is on school property. The idea to have a safe way, ADA compliant way to get kids across the driveways. In the case of Academy, then across the driveway here to the board offices to the sidewalk that's on campus. And get them into the entrances. And at Davis to do the same thing, get across the parking driveway at the top of the hill, leaving a little bit of distance so that a car wouldn't stop in the middle of the turning movement. Would have a little space to see the cross there. We're also applied to improve facilities with an RRFB at Academy Drive and Colgate Drive, the bottom of the hill. There would also be some additional updates to the ADA ramps. We're also applied for sidewalk replacement and widening on Muskingum Drive. That would start right about Davis and go, I think it's like 300 feet. That's what we had room to fit into this application. We also have brick sidewalk repair on 4th Street between Warren and Camp Avenue. That actually serves two purposes. It can get kids to the high school, but can also get kids and families to Washington Elementary. So it's kind of a crossing there. So that's what we have applied for, and that's what this joint resolution would be for, because we would be on school property. And as part of that handout, I also have location maps that you can see and conceptualize. And as part of the memorandum of understanding, that would be the joint resolution. The it's just an agreement that we will cooperate to construct the facilities as outlined, including grant access, providing rights, permissions, and construction of the various projects, notifying you, the user, of impacts to access if we have to block the drive during concrete pouring or something like that. Responding to requests for information from the state of Ohio, Department of Transportation, and other agencies. Total cost of the various projects estimated to be $500,000 if the city is awarded the Safe Route to School funds. The city will agree to pay 100% of the construction costs over and above the maximum amount provided for the grant. That would all be on us, not on the school whatsoever. And then upon completion of the projects, we, with the cooperation of the school district, will maintain the projects in accordance with all applicable state and federal laws. And if necessary, maintain the right-of-way, keeping it free of obstructions, and if necessary, holds said right-of-way inviolate for public highway purposes. So we won't come in and start blocking Academy, so the kids can't walk up it.
Okay, good.
Sound a bit of Davis. With that said, I'd love to field some questions.
Have you guys, looked at the drainage here along Academy Drive on the hillside? Because that's,
I have, it's doing a wonder on some of my brand new asphalt that's 3 years old. I was noticing that, the other day and noticing it again coming up. I think that's part of a bigger project regarding the culverts at the bottom of the hill. We have a kind of a wide net looking at our stormwater right now.
Any questions?
No, I'm good.
I will ask the engineer, are you, the bump outs on, Betsy Mitchell,
Yes, sir.
would you still hold both lanes?
One lane would be used as a pickup and drop off for the elementary school. The idea of any through traffic that isn't stopping for a pickup can just use one lane and turn right or left through there. Anybody leaving the pickup drop off area would have to merge back into that lane to exit. So it would be a closed system on both ends. We're also going to raise that sidewalk above the roadway because right now it is a river. That's how we kind of got started on that portion of it. And the city engineer said, well, because we've worked with Daryl, we've worked with the principal, worked with the superintendent of trying to figure out how to make the traffic for when school lets in, lets out more clear. You know, it's just been a hassle of cars and just lots of people. And unfortunately, the pickup drop-off area that Mr. Archer's allowed at his site isn't going to last forever. So we're trying to kind of get ahead of that as well.
I think that's something as a district we'll have
Figure out.
to think more about.
And I'll go ahead and hit a spot that the way that we selected portions of this project this year, especially with the high school, was starting at the high school itself as kind of the focal point and work out from there, since the high school has never been able to be part of this program before. Also, the high school and Marietta Elementary serve eventually all students in the region or in the school region. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of kids that walk to Phillips or live within the area to walk to Phillips. And with it being kindergarten to second grade, it's not a lot of people are putting their kids out there, waving by and take your lunch, get out of here. So we're trying to prioritize. We also, as part of our former applications, we had a very large package of sidewalk in areas that don't have sidewalk. As part of our new travel plan, we've cut that up into bite-sized pieces so that I think before And this was a price that was maybe 7 years old. It was about $1.2 million worth of sidewalk. The idea that if we cut it up into bite-sized pieces, then we can start hitting these as we can acquire right of way, as we can make agreements for property owners, because that is not a part that can be in an ODOT project, is the acquisition of right of way for these projects. But I know that's something that different members of the school have mentioned to me, especially around Marietta Elementary. We'd love to see more sidewalk where we don't have sidewalk now. And it's very much on our radar and agenda to get that done as we go forward with this program. Any follow-up questions?
All right. Thank you. Thanks. I'll let you know in the morning when we're ready.
Sounds good.
Okay? Thank you. All right, that is, I believe, all the presentations.
All right, Sam, you want to take back over here, man?
Okay.
Ready for reports and comments?
Apologize for my absence.
Thank you so much.
Let's grab my agenda here real quick. Just let Brad keep talking.
Yeah, I'm up first.
Sounds good.
I like it.
All right, so first thing we want to talk about is a strategic plan. As you know, we've been working through this process. I did give you all a copy of the core team kind of update from OSBA. Once we completed that part of the process. We are working with the goal teams now, and we'll continue to do so over the next several weeks. Kind of honing in on these goals to our action plans. So I've been trying to kind of keep you updated as we go through this process and sharing out some of the information. I've had great participation, some really, really good comments and ideas about how we can, make some progress and really taking a look at those areas that a lot of people are focused in on. So it's been really good so far. So that's a big thing. I do want to mention just a couple other real quick items. Number one is on Wednesday, we will be in Columbus talking with legislators about some possible legislative change for school funding in terms of how they fund capital projects through OFCC and that sort of thing. So we're going to spend a good deal of time actually working through Chorus, the group that is representing, Southeastern Ohio and all these counties, and is actually the president of Chorus this year. So we'll be in Columbus, Frank and I, Allie, Tim, and Sam on Wednesday talking to legislators. So that'll be an interesting part. A couple of shout outs. Mr. Vendrick is not able to be here. Today's opening day, and they've been able to have opening day despite our recent rain and everything else. So I did want to share, just some congratulations. We had state champions for our cheer competition earlier in the month. So congratulations to those ladies. Last week, the choir had just a wonderful concert of excellence, and we have some really talented kids in this district. So it's awesome to see all that. Our track got started off over the last few days with winning both girls and boys fairweather relay. So that was quite an appropriate name over the weekend too. So we're in a good spring start there. So lots going on. That's really about what I have for tonight too. So, okay.
Yeah, from a curriculum standpoint, March 17th, we had one of the 2 work/PE days we had to the calendar this year that I think have been well received. So that day looked different for different people. I gave some time to study and work on some new curriculum pieces. Actually the curriculum that we ended up adopting in late January had arrived. So that was a whole day where kindergarten through 8th grade had the opportunity to go through some of those materials, get familiarized, sort some. Met with different teams throughout the day, talking about scheduling. Third grade reached out, met with them to talk about scheduling, curriculum, different pieces. So there was a lot of those types of things that go on throughout the day that was really nice to have during the day instead of I worked all day, it's 4:30, now I have to meet for an hour. So I think as we look ahead at next year's calendar and some of those days that we've implemented, as long as we're strategic and we can plan, building level pieces like that, it'll be really important because last year, the thing that we heard most is time is one of the most valuable resources, and it's hard to give time. So we built that into the calendar to help us be successful. The other part that on March 17th that I thought went really well is during that PD day, we had a book study during the day instead of the outside of the daytime. So again, another large group, 50 plus participants, kindergarten through 12th grade. It was on a book called The Writing Revolution, and it complements our curriculum very well. So some of the pieces that we're excited about is writing across subject areas and coming up with some non-negotiables of starting in kindergarten. These are the types of things that no matter what class we're in, math, science, social studies, we're writing using some of these standards. And that will build up all the way through 12th grade. So if we can have some of those common themes throughout, and I think, Susan was in that book study too, but there's a lot of excitement from both kindergarten through 12th grade. I think some of the high school staff, they were even more vocally excited than some of the kindergarten first, second. So it's really good to see that camaraderie. And the next session of that in person is April 26th. Everyone's welcome to come. It's open. And we're going to have Keith McCarroll, who was one of our literacy people last year that people really enjoyed listening to. He's going to kind of come help and facilitate some more of that conversation. So, so I think things are going well. And I think that March 17th day is really good. And as we continue that next year, we'll have some time built in to do some things like this.
Thank you, Tim. Derek?
Okay, just got a couple things that are going to probably be exciting to MES and Washington. MES's sign and the high school signs are here at Signality. They are waiting on a Stewart sign tech to come from Stewart to help with the installation and make sure everything's done the way it needs to be done to get both of those up and running working right. Washington, we have got a plaster guy ready to start. We got a flooring guy ready to start. They are going to start. I think they want to try to get in on Saturday and start setting things up. They're going to work over the week of spring break. The plaster guy said he will have the ceiling done. It won't be painted, but all the holes will be repaired and plaster. And our paint crew will paint it over the summer. The flooring guy's going to come in and take all the flooring up off the first floor and lay plywood down to where the kids will have a nice flat surface to walk on, and teachers will be able to open their classroom doors without having somebody to help them. But I'm kind of excited, over spring break, we'll get all that taken care of. That's about it.
Cody's that? Allison?
Well, I'm just gonna follow up on PD day. I actually trained all of our aides in attendance on PD day for CPI training. I went in September and got trained to be a trainer so that I could train our staff. And it was nice that it was a day that we could do that, but some of them had to be there anyway because we don't have subs for aides in attendance and we need them on a daily basis. So it was nice to be able to do that, that we could utilize some of those days next year for those to train the aides in attendance as well. But I just wanted to kind of update on kindergarten registration. We currently have 122 students enrolled between both buildings. And Janelle put a video out today on Facebook and our social media pages, just kind of encouraging people and to understand the process of kindergarten registration. Tim and I actually went to Head Start a few weeks ago. We were asked to go and present to one of their family nights about kindergarten. So we went and talked about kindergarten registration, kindergarten readiness skills, and just attendance and the importance of attendance. So, but we still have a few more days of registration this week, so hopefully we can get that finalized and get some more people enrolled too, so.
Awesome.
What, give you any what numbers we were at last year at this time?
85.
I was gonna say,
We're ahead of schedule.
Yes.
yeah.
We had 85 at this time last year.
Awesome.
What's our enrollment right now for kindergarten? We don't have, we weren't the 85, right? Like,
I think it's around 165, but the kindergarten class now.
Yeah,
so a lot of people come in late.
yeah,
They never.
nobody saw it. People start thinking.
All right.
Yeah, very good. Awesome. Thank you all. We'll move on to board members, reports and comments.
I can pick up.
You want to go first,
Should we
Ed?
start down here? or
Yes,
what?
well, let's switch it up.
I don't have a whole lot to say. I am on the goal committee for buildings, facilities, transportation, and safety. It's neat to sit down and digest all the comments that we received. They're kind of, there's a lot there. Taking care of what we have was a big, and I don't want to steal the thunder from where we're headed,
Right.
because we're not there yet, but when you think, and then new buildings just keeps popping up. And when you think about it, I just wrote it down. Washington Elementary is 111 years old. I think this is right. Marietta Elementary is 97 years old. Phillips Elementary is 69 years old. And MHS, our youngest building, is 57 years old. So, I mean, that's pretty eye-opening. So, are we taking care of what we have? I mean, it's hard to argue we're not in some capacity. But I guess the point of all that is we're gonna get some really good goals, I think, coming out of this. But I think what we're working on, the culture, is really, I feel like there's some momentum gaining. I feel like we're talking more as a district. Brad, I think your work ethic, is, good to see. I think the fact that you're here 4 nights a week with strategic planning, I hope that that's infectious with everybody, because when I came on the board, I thought it just felt like you were walking into something that was, we're a lot closer maybe than to really taking off and getting some of that Marietta pride back that maybe we'd slipped. You've been here your whole life, so you know what it's been, and the ebbs and the flows over the years and stuff. So anyway, excited to be a part of that strategic planning.
Bill?
Nothing for tonight.
Russ, I'm just excited to see the goal stuff continue to move. Anxious.
I'll piggyback a little bit off of what Mr. Silvas mentioned, the choir and handbell concert, phenomenal performance that night. It was really cool to see our high school at a different venue in the community, such a historically rich venue, just to expose our people to a building like that. So special thanks to First Congregational Church for letting us in there. And we hope to go back to a venue like that and do more of that type of partnership with the community in the future when it comes to those concerts, because that was a lot of fun seeing a full church like that, and being a pastor, I guess I kind of like that too. So, but and also, to piggyback off of what Russ said, the excited about the core team getting to process a lot of these action steps that are coming out of the goal teams. And I'm really excited to see where the rubber's going to hit the road. And a lot of these things are going to start happening.
Same. It was fun to be on part of the core team. I do want to thank Emily Deal, Lucinda Swartz, Emily Klinger, and Jordan Darling. A couple weeks ago, Emily Deal asked me a long time ago to speak to her class about government and what I do for a profession. And it was mainly, I think, Emily and Lucinda's his social studies class, but Emily and Jordan's class were there too. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good questions out of that. So it was really fun to be fun to be in the classroom with them. And then I'm excited because later this week, Jessie Albright invited me to her classroom. So I'm gonna visit with them, I think on Friday for a little bit of time. So looking forward to that. And then I had reached out to just send an email to the board a while back about the Appalachian Community Grant Program that has pre-curve planners. They have a little forum. I did submit the forum mainly because I don't know what it's gonna. It's not clear on what everybody's projects gets to use a pre-curve planner or not. But it's a part of the program. The state has paid for these planning firms, and I put in there for Harmer School. I did find out the pre-curve planners, it's not full design engineering. It could be conceptual, preliminary. They can do some facilitation and engagement. So I just threw it out there. I'm sure there'd be, if we were selected, we're an eligible applicant as a school district for that program. But I wrote in there that, I would like to potentially have a planner facilitate some engagement about the potential reuse of Harmer, whether that remains in school or it remains something else. Just kind of do that work for us, obviously, through that program, and maybe provide whatever the kind of engagement was, and what those reuses could be, what our cost estimates to that. I think that really flows nicely with the work that the Port Authority is doing with the phase 1, phase 2 environmental assessment for that. Just to kind of understand what that process looks like. I speak of that just because I have an emotional attachment to Harmer since I went to Harmer, but I also feel like we have a pretty big responsibility just for the historical significance of that building to see what this option could look like. And then I also submitted just a questionnaire. Buckeye Hills Regional Council has a brownfield for ARC funding. Just, you got to fill out these project profiles just to get on their radar. But that would be for potentially cleanup money if the timing will work out with whatever those assessments would be from the phase 1 and phase 2. So just kind of leveraging those things together potentially. So once I don't know, the state hasn't said anything about how that process will go, but I'll let you guys know, because if it were to work out that way, I'm sure it would be an agreement we'd have to sign and all that stuff. But other than that, that's all I got.
All right.
Moving on to citizen forum. No, none? No participants. We'll move on to approval and acceptance of actions. In front of you are the meeting minutes from the regular meeting on February 21st, 2023, and the meeting minutes from special meeting in March on the 14th, 2023.
I'm going to accept the minutes for both of those meetings.
Second that.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Discussion none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison. Yes. Mr. Parman,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Tootin.
Yes. Moving on to financial.
Financials, if you guys are flipping back to the back with your first white sheet with the gold. Here, 10 million versus 6 million last year. Improvement funds are at 1.6 million compared to
almost 1.1 last year. Self-insurance fund, remember we talked about it a little bit in January, it was down. February it's back up to 1.4 million compared to 2.076 last year. Athletic fund coaches is 207,000 versus 153,000 last year at this time. Nothing big going out right now, which is an indication of our permanent improvement funds at 1.6 million. We did get possession of the last bus. I think we have it later on as checks over 1,000. Flip to the next lighter yellow sheet. Total of all funds for the district is right at $13.7 million. Green page spending plan. Really, month of February, we took in 2.6 million. Also got a payment in March, and I'm hoping to get my final settlements will allow us to know where the spring settlement estimate came in, because I project more revenue. I'll be anxious to see if that number is where we projected it to be. So part of a 5-year forecast. Total for the month, we were over 1.6 million. Year to date, we have 16 under 15 million for a little bit over 1.12. Pink salmon color page. Had some adjustments. In March of each year, the state kind of adjusts their title monies. You can see the work it takes to make a $29.42 adjustment beyond me, but we had to adjust some of these things down because the state took some of our money back. So we had $97,000 worth of adjustments in February. Expenses. Missy's on gold tonight. She likes yellow tonight. So salaries for the month of February came in at $905,000. The estimate was $912,000, so we're right on track there. Benefits $469,000 versus a $500,000 estimate. And purchase services separate than estimated expense. Again, these are very important to keep our eyes on as we go through that 5-year forecast, because these are what feeds that forecast each month. Revenue side, again, real estate, the 2.6 million we took in February. So I'm anxious to see if we get another $6.3 million by the end of this month. So for the final settlement. State aid, $683,000 versus $646,000. Again, those will all kind of balance out when we get to the end of the year. And then come late April, early May, we'll get our public utility settlement. Checks over 1,000. First page, any questions on any of that? ABI, again, ABI is our food service provider for the district. Second page shows health insurance, SERS and STRS retirement. I think we made a down payment of that $18,860 was a down payment for the 8th grade trip. Or Washington DC, sorry. And then final page showing events and contracts and some more retirements. The very last page is just what we kind of talked about at the last meeting. What's remaining in the ESSER 3 fund is just around over $2 million. Any questions on any of that?
Move that we accept the financials as presented.
Quick question. I see, I mentioned this a while back on the CDs or something where we can get some, I mean, the interest rates are now what? High as they've been since 2007. Can we, I mean, even People's Bank, can we shift a couple $1 million into a CD or something?
Or Star Ohio is what I would, Star Ohio is.
What is that?
Star Ohio is it's utilized by school districts, local governments in the state of Ohio. They pay a higher interest rate without locking your money up. So if we need it, we can get it out easier. So you wouldn't have to lock it up.
Wouldn't People's Bank be like a partner of ours? Doesn't work that way. I mean, they want.
We did interest rate for People's Bank, but we have to. We need to request another one because the interest rate has
Yeah,
went again since
I mean-
when we talked to them in November. So.
I'm gonna abstain, that's my bad, Frank, when I look at stuff that you send, I always don't look at the checks, I don't know why, ahead of time, for that life and purpose, just because that's on. But since it's on here on the first page and I forgot to mention this earlier in my update, the Lynn Engineering and Triumph that's doing the geotechnical stuff. I've been working with Cody the last week, just to finalize potentially what that site would look like. They requested that because of the slope that is that hill, behind the school. So that we can get a more accurate and appropriate report with what we could do versus what's there right now. So Cody's working with the Mott's group on that in terms of where exactly everything's would theoretically be. And then hopefully have that done by the next meeting, and then,
I think we should have by next meeting.
yeah. That's all my comment.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah.
Moving on to contribution and gifts. G3. Whereas athletic department sponsorships donated to the MC skating project, and whereas the Community Foundation donated $2,000 to Tabby's Clothesline, and whereas Mark and Sally Wild donated $160 for team meals for MHS boys basketball, and whereas MHS baseball donated $206 to Team Ashton, and whereas MHS boys basketball donated $690.50 from the Pepperoni fundraiser to MHS boys basketball, and whereas MHS football donated $290 from discount cards to Merida football, and whereas Merida High School girls basketball donated $105 from basketball camp to Merida girls basketball, and whereas MHS softball donated $1,100 from the Super Bowl fundraiser to MHS softball, and whereas MHS swimming donated $144 from the swimming banquet to MHS swimming. Therefore, be it resolved that the Merida City School District Board of Education accept these donations, and be it further resolved by the Merida City School District Board of Education that these gifts be accepted with appreciation.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Got a move in a second. Any discussion? No discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Mr. Farman,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Toots.
Yes. On to recommended actions. No old business. Moving on to new business. Which in front of you is the whole consent agenda.
On page 3, we need to add under Schedule R 23-03, Andrew Prim. So Andrew Prim was at the high school as custodian 2. He Washington custodial 3 job. And that was effective as of March 6th. Sean Bloomfield took his job at Marietta High School. On page 4, Brad, do you want to speak to Brendan?
Yes, and that would be under
2CCA.
2CCA. We are adding Brendan Hook for hire to fill math position at Marietta High School.
What was the name again?
Brendan, Brendan Hook. Huck. We got word of him accepting the position this morning, so we want to get that on and get him hired
And that's for next school year.
for next school year. Yeah, sorry.
Music teacher.
They have interviews tomorrow afternoon. They have 5 or 6 interviews. So hopefully we'll have a great candidate. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm saying Eric needs to abstain from page 8, that resolution for safe. So we'll just go through page 1 through 7.
Okay.
For a motion and a second.
Motion to accept resolutions for page 1 through 7.
A second.
On the position that, the maintenance specialist and preference of air conditioning emphasis.
Yeah.
Is that are we having a lot of AC repairs?
No, it was actually required before, and so we put preference so that would expand our pool of candidates that we would like them to, but it's not, I mean, before it was a requirement. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So we just modified that so that we could get some people that, even if they're not specializing in HVAC, then we've still got good candidates, is what it comes down to. Yeah.
So it's primary for the site, position substitute role.
Yeah, and so,
Responsibilities.
yeah, so it still could be there, but it's not a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for pages 1 through 7 of the consent agenda. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Mr. Parman,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Tootin.
Yes.
Move to accept item 2K, CA, resolution on the safe routes to school.
Second.
First and a second. Any discussion? I missed most of Dave's thing, but I guess I thank him for coming. No further discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Mr. Parman,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Abstain.
Mr. Tootin.
Yes. Motion carries. All right. You have any reason to go into executive session tonight?
We need to deal with the MOU for Stark State.
It's just, I provided that because we want to make sure you had it, and we actually have it in there, so it's one that I have to sign, not Sam. So it's
Okay.
every one of these, now the safe routes to schools, we have one we need Sam to sign tonight. So it's his signature, so. She just wanted to make sure we had that, because when she put it in there, it wasn't the actual resolution, I don't think, or a part of it, yeah.
Okay.
No reason for executive session.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a first and a second to adjourn. No discussion. Roll call, please.
Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Mr. Parman,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Tootin.
Yes. Time is 7:17.